Hello, Internet. My name is Roro, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone's having a good day. Today, I wanted to talk about something that I've touched on my channel before, and essentially having jobs that pay your bills and fund your art while you're making art, pursuing art, whether you want it to be your career or not. Just having a job as an artist, essentially. And I wanted to do something a little bit special for this video because we've broken the 100 subscriber mark, which is amazing. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos and enjoying them. And there's been so much discourse in the comments talking about the different things that I talk about in my videos, and it's been really, really great. So I just wanted to thank everybody who subscribes to my channel. And the main inspiration for this video was actually a conversation I had with somebody named Wolf Skull War Dagger in the comments on one of my other videos, and they asked me what I do for a living, and it kind of made me realize I've done a lot of different things in my life. I've had a lot of different jobs over the last 15 years, and I've been making art and music that entire time. So I thought it'd be cool to dig into my past a little bit, get a little bit more into my personal life, my personal experience with having a job and being an artist at the same time. What's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, and yeah, so let's get into it. So, technically, the first job I've ever had was working at a medical supply company in the office doing clerical work, like filing stuff, doing like minor billing type stuff, but really it's just kind of office clerical work. And I got the job because my grandmother and my mother both worked there. It's kind of a family business. So I started working there at a very young age, like 13, 14, just making kind of cash under the table, which was great. It was the first time I ever was able to do any sort of work. And I enjoyed it. And I ended up working there later in my life, too. I'll get into that. But yeah, that was my first job. So the second job I had, or I should say attempted to have, was working at Dunkin' Donuts, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a coffee donut chain in the Northeast mostly. They have them throughout America, but they're mostly in the Northeast of America, which is where I am from and where I grew up. I tried to work there when I was 14, when I was still in 8th grade. And when you're that young, you have to get working papers, which they approve through your school. So I went through the whole process of getting working papers, applying to the job. I got accepted to the job. And then they scheduled my first day of training, and I just decided to not show up. And I just never went to that job, never had the job. I probably wanted to play video games or skateboard that day or something and just decided it wasn't worth it. So that was my first attempt. And most people where I grew up were working at a very young age. But as I've gotten older and meeting people from other places, a lot of people don't start working until they're out of high school sometimes. But for me, as soon as I could get a job, I wanted to, because, I skateboarded, I played drums, I played a lot of video games, and my family wasn't, they weren't just going to buy me everything I wanted in every moment. So I made it a priority to work so that I can have my own money to buy the things that I wanted when I wanted them. But as I mentioned, that didn't end up working out. But not too long after that, I got a job at a local supermarket, and I was 14 or 15 when I got that job as well. And essentially, they had this program that was actually really cool where anyone who was under the age of, I think, 16 legally was not allowed to work 3 hours or more without taking a break. So basically what they would do is I would get out of school around 2:30, and I would get to the supermarket at 3 p.m. And I was just a cashier at first, and they would have me work on register from 3 until 5:45 p.m., 2 hours and 45 minutes, just enough where I couldn't take a break. And that was cool because it was a short shift, so I was still able to do stuff afterwards, but it was just a little bit of work getting me into the working world and a little bit of money in my pocket. When you're a teenager, a little bit of money goes a long way, so that was really nice to have. And I ended up working there for most of high school, about 3 years. I ended up working closing shifts and doing different stuff where I would be like not on register as much. So it was cool. It was a way for me to kind of learn how to progress at a job. And it was a union job too. In a lot of ways, it was one of the best jobs I've ever had because I was getting benefits. I was getting 6-month required raises every 6 months. It was a really great job. And honestly, if all else fails in my life, there's a good chance that I would go back to something like that, working at a supermarket where there's a union and it's like a more secure job because I loved it. You know, you're essentially serving the community that you live in, which is nice. So I really liked that job. But I ended up quitting that job impulsively, kind of, where I was getting sick of it anyway. But I was hanging out with a bunch of friends one day and I was supposed to work and I just decided to not go in. So I tried to call out, and the person that I ended up talking to, I think that they knew that I wasn't actually sick and I was just making up excuses because I didn't want to work. So they kind of called me out and I just got super pissed and hung up the phone and I just never went back to work, which I don't recommend doing, but I was a teenager and I was stupid and I did it. So yeah. And I don't recommend not doing it because of, you should respect corporate businesses or whatever. It's just more of a personal thing, like doing what felt right to me. And that didn't feel right to me, even though I did do that multiple other times in my life, which I will also get into. But yeah, it was great. And it's a great experience because, like I said, I was making art, I was making music. I played drums at the time. So that stuff is expensive, buying cymbals, having to buy drumsticks, replace drum heads. Those costs add up. So at a very early age, I was self-funding my art and my music. And I think that it was really great that I did that at such a young age because it kind of helped me learn how to do it for the rest of my life. But yeah, so after that job, I ended up working at a Papa John's Pizza, delivering pizza. I was 17, 18, and I did it for one summer. And it was a really crazy experience, honestly, because my friend was the manager somehow at 17, 18 years old. And so he hired me, and he pretty much just hired our whole friend group. So essentially, my entire friend group of 17, 18-year-olds ran a Papa John's Pizza for a summer. And it was crazy. It was a lot of fun. It was stressful, but I was starting to make more money because of the tips. You really get more money. I think at the time, the hourly rate for a delivery driver was like $6 an hour, which is crazy to think about now. But that was just like a fun job. And I ended up quitting that job because I was really like hustling in that time in my life and I wanted to work as much as possible. So I would work opening to closing a lot, like 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., just to make as much money as I could. And there was one day where I was going to do a delivery and it was late and I was like putting the next address into my GPS while I was driving, wasn't paying attention, drove off the road, crashed into a stop sign and ended up damaging my car pretty bad. And, you can't deliver pizzas if you don't have a car. So that was the end of that job for me. But yeah, okay. So after that job, I ended up working at a little kid's party place where, they have like the big blow up slides, the bounce houses, that kind of stuff. It's like where kids go to have birthday parties. And I really wanted to do that job. One, because I knew a lot of people that worked there. A lot of my friends worked there. And two, I wanted to go to school for elementary education. I wanted to be a teacher. So I loved working with kids, and it was a cool way for me to like work with kids in a way and get paid to do it. That was a fun job. I ended up meeting a lot of friends there that I still kind of talk to today. And I ended up working there for a while, and it was kind of on and off because I was going to college, coming back home. I ended up dropping out of college and then going back to that job. But yeah, that was a great experience as well. It didn't pay as much as other jobs I've had, but the job itself was fun. And at the time, I wanted to work with kids. So it was a good job for me to do that. And while I was working there, I was about 20 years old at the time. I had gotten into a little bit of trouble legally, nothing too serious, but enough where I had to go to court and I had to get a lawyer. So I ended up needing some money. So I took a job working overnights at like a retail store, and it was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 5 days a week. And that job was brutal. And I was still working at the kids' party place as well. So there would be some days where I would work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., get out of work. I would have 2 hours, and then I would go work from like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the kids' party place. That just got to be too much. The owner of the company at the kids' party place actually approached me and was like, dude, you look like a zombie. Like, you can't be working here if you're like exhausted and tired. Like, there's kids and you need to keep them safe. And I was like, that's totally valid. So they didn't fire me, but it was sort of like a mutual thing where I was like, I probably shouldn't be doing this anymore. I had this other job where I was making a decent amount of money and it ended up working out fine. So yeah, I did that for about 6 months. And if anyone's ever worked overnights before, it's hard, man. Like, it takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll on your mind. It's really hard to know like when's the right time to sleep, how much sleep you should be getting, all that kind of stuff. And for me, it was okay because I loved having an excuse to not socialize with people because for anyone who watches my channel, I'm a loner. I'm always by myself. I like to just kind of keep it low key. So it was an excuse for me to just kind of be by myself more often. But after a while, I was getting sick. I was really having a hard time getting up and going to work. There'd be days where I would wake up and just be crying, knowing I had to work overnight for 8 hours. Like, it was really brutal. So similar to the other job I had, one day I just stopped showing up. And that was kind of messed up because I had a friend that I also worked with there, and I kind of put him in a weird position when I did that. He ended up quitting not too long after that, but again, who cares about the company? Who cares about the corporation, whatever? But more so for me, I just feel like it kind of reinforced bad habits in my life where I didn't have to be accountable and responsible for my own actions. So I wouldn't recommend doing that for that reason. And that kind of leads to where I was at in my life at that time. I was about 21 years old and I had dropped out of college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So one of my friends that was from my hometown said that he was moving across the country to live with his family. And I pretty much was like, let me go with you. Fuck it. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. So I just went for it. And I went out there with about $300, which is not a lot of money. And we got this really shitty 1-bedroom apartment. I was sharing it with 2 other people. I didn't even have a room. I didn't even have a bed. I had an air mattress that was popped. And I was sleeping behind a couch on a popped air mattress. And I ended up getting a job as a crossing guard for the public school system in the area, which was so funny because, like I said, I was 21 and all the other crossing guards were like old as fuck. But the good thing about it was I had to work 40 minutes in the morning when all the kids went to school, and then I had to work 40 minutes in the afternoon when all the kids got out of school. So I was really only working an hour and 20 minutes total every day. That really helped me spend a lot of time working on my art and my music. That's really where I developed like a lot of my skills. It was a really like pinnacle time in my creative journey. And yeah, I mean, I was broke as fuck, but my bills were really low. I was in a part of the country where it's not very expensive, and I didn't have a social life. I wasn't doing anything. I was just working when I needed to, and then the rest of the time I spent making music, which was great. And I was out there for a while, but that ended up not being what I wanted, and I knew I wasn't going to be out there permanently, so I ended up moving back across the country, back in with my parents, back in my hometown. Again, not really knowing what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. So I ended up getting a job at Cracker Barrel, which is a restaurant, for anyone who doesn't know. And I was working as a dishwasher. And for anyone who's never worked in a restaurant, it is intense. It's a fast-paced, high-energy environment. I know some people thrive in that environment and it's what they love, but for me, it just was way too much for me to deal with. So I worked there for like 3 weeks. The management was really sketchy and weird. So one day I literally went to throw the garbage out and I took my fucking smock off, threw it on the ground and sprinted to my car and drove away, and I never went back. Again, don't recommend doing that, but I was in a very different time in my life. My mental health was not good at all. So that's what happened. So after that, I ended up working at the Gap, the clothing store. I was doing the early shipment shift. So I would work from 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. So it was still it wasn't an overnight, but it was still that sort of altered schedule where you have to kind of figure out when you're going to sleep and stuff. I worked about 30 minutes away from where I was living, so I would have to leave my house at like 3:30 in the morning. And I did that for a while actually. Long enough where I ended up moving to a different city and I transferred to a location in the city I was moving to. So I worked at the Gap for a couple years, and working there was great because it helped me fund myself getting my own place. Because before this, I was just living with my parents. I moved out of my parents' house a couple times throughout my life, but fully for real when I was 24. So pretty young, at least for people that I know, but I was able to do it and I really wanted to. So I was very grateful that I had that job to help me do that. And throughout all of these jobs, if I was local, like in my hometown, I would work at the medical supply company also to supplement my income. And I ended up doing more billing and sort of more office work there. And it was just a great way. They let me, make my own hours essentially as long as I got the work done. So I could work whenever I wanted during business hours. And since it was kind of like a family business, they were very understanding with me. And that was really nice too. And that also helped me save up to move out. But yeah, so then I moved to the new city, and obviously it's expensive to pay for your own apartment and all your bills and all that kind of stuff. And I was working part time at the Gap, doing those early morning shifts still, and I was barely getting by. Luckily, my partner had a slightly better job, so we were able to survive, but we were very, very broke. And I would supplement my income doing Postmates, which is like a courier service where it's like food or stuff that people want delivered to them. I would do that. For a little while, I did dog walking to supplement my income, but that was very short lived as well. And yeah, I did that for a while, and it just got to a point where I didn't like the job. It was a big box retail store, like as they call them, big corporation. Just kind of didn't like the vibe. I wasn't getting paid as much as I should have, and they really were taking advantage of me and making me do things that I really shouldn't have been doing. But I've always just been a very like willing worker at all jobs. So I always end up being the person that they give all the work that nobody else wants to do, because my mentality is if I'm going to be at work, I'm going to work, like it's more annoying to try to like not work at your job than it is to just get things done, because time goes by faster, you feel more fulfilled, but of course you have to balance that without getting taken advantage of. And I had to learn that the hard way. So yeah, it just got to a point where the job was too much for me, but I put in my 2 weeks. I did it the right way. I think for the first time ever, honestly, quitting a job properly. And that worked out. It was a good experience for me. And it transferred to my next job, which was also a retail job, but it was an art supply store. And that was my first job that I had where I was like, okay, this is actually like a cool job. I ended up getting promoted to managing one of the locations, and it was really great. I got to learn a lot about art supplies, especially because I'm an artist, that obviously helped me learn, and it inspired me to make art, and it inspired me to, help my friends with art. And I would always like hook up my friends when they came in, give them art supplies, and like, sell them stuff at a discount, stuff like that. So that was a really cool plug to have, and it was just a really great experience for me. It was a smaller business, which was nice, but they ended up going out of business, and I kind of caught wind of it before they fully did. And that's what made me transition to my next job, which is the job that I currently still have, which is working in art handling, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's essentially packing, shipping, installing artwork, antiques, like working with interior designers, stuff like that. And when I started that job, I was working in a warehouse and I was working on the road, just kind of lugging furniture around, working on a forklift in a warehouse, doing stuff like that. I was learning how to pack stuff. I was learning how to crate different things, the proper ways to do that. And I ended up getting promoted to a shipping coordinator position in the office, which, like I said, is the job that I still have. And I got really lucky because it's another job that I got with one of my best friends. We both still work together. And I ended up moving across the country to the other coast. And they liked my work so much that they offered me to keep my position. So now that's how I'm able to work remotely from home. And yeah, it's honestly incredible. And the job is so interesting. And I talk to so many interesting people. You know, even when I was working on the road, I was in so many rich people's apartments and in buildings that I never would be in if I didn't have this job. So it was a really cool experience, eye-opening experience for me. And yeah, I really enjoy it, especially now that I'm working from home where I'm not, breaking my back lifting a bunch of heavy shit all day. And yeah, there's definitely some other small jobs that I either am forgetting about or I intentionally didn't mention because they were so short-lived or didn't really help me survive kind of thing, you know? Like I've had like random freelance gigs with music or stuff like that, but this was definitely like the core jobs that I had that paid my bills and taught me all the skills and the information that I needed to know about being a worker in America and what that means and what that looks like. Um, this video definitely ended up being a lot longer than I thought, but I guess it kind of makes sense. And this channel I really see as like an archive of my thoughts and my life and my ideas. So, that's kind of what this is about. Just archiving part of my life, And yeah, I hope even though it's kind of long and different, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, thanks for watching the video, especially this one. I would definitely recommend checking out some other videos on my channel. They're a lot shorter and I talk about lots of different interesting things. And I put out a new video every Sunday. So if you liked this one, you can come back next week for a new one. And yeah, thanks again for all the subscribers, breaking 100. Really, really cool. Really means a lot. I'm going to keep going hard with these videos. I'm going to put out a new one every week indefinitely. So thanks for coming. Thanks for sticking around. And I'll see you guys next time.